is pretty complete looking. It looks not too bad. But I do need to finesse some things, and one of those things, aside from the non-working reverse gear, and I'm procrastinating about that, aside from that, ground clearance is, let's say, at a premium. Let me show you. So yes, this is the ground clearance, and I think that we have, between the sump and the ground, which is there, probably about 4 inches, maybe 3.5, 4 inches. The exhaust obviously is hanging a bit lower, but that could be raised with a bit of modification. But what I'm interested in finding out now is whether I could actually raise the engine slightly in the chassis. Now, one of the things about that is the clearance in the engine bay, and I have discovered that the limitation is actually the throttle body, where it potentially interferes with this reinforcer. I think it's about the thickness of my finger. However, I could obviously increase that clearance by removing this reinforcer, which I suspect may not be strictly necessary, considering it's got similar reinforcers all round the edge. So probably I could manage without that. But the question is, can I, and how much, and so forth. So what I'm going to do is, let me put you back in here. So what I'm going to do is jack the engine up slightly and just shim, I suppose might be the word, shim the engine mountings upwards to see how much can I actually go, how much effect does it have, all that type of thing. So I actually made these things, which are so these aren't the engine mountings I'm using actually. These are sort of Capri Ford Escort type ones. The ones in there are actually slightly slimmer, Land Rover style, but they are pretty much the same as this. In fact, I could possibly use this one instead, and that would raise the engine up, wouldn't it? But possibly these are too thick. Anyway, so my shimming, I've made this stuff, made these little things out of laminate flooring actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack the engine up, put one or maybe two of these in between the engine mounting and the chassis, and the engine mounting and the bobbin thing here, and just to see kind of what happens. So I can do that fairly easily, I hope. So this is the engine mounting bobbin, which is the Land Rover one, which I think I said was similar to the Ford one but a bit thinner. And you might see there's a spare amount of thread up here with the nut on the top, so I'm going to jack the engine up and see if I can slide one of those shims in there. It's just starting to lift, I think. A bit more. Let's see if I can get one in. No, it's not quite big enough. That might possibly be enough. Is it? Yes. Okay. So that is one shim. So I can now let the engine back down again. It will be just that little bit higher up, and we'll go from there. Right, so I think I might see if I can put 2 of those spacers in. And the bottom, you probably can't see quite from where you are. The bottom threaded section is actually threaded into the mounting plate. So I'm just turning it by hand, and that may or may not be quite enough. So I can put one in underneath. Okay, I'll screw that back down again. Okay, so that's one underneath, and if I jack it up some more, I can put one in the top as well. Okay. Now I think actually the total thickness of that engine mounting is now about the same as the Ford one. Comparison. In fact, I think the Ford one, oh, there's nothing in it. So yeah. Alright, I'm going to let the engine back down again now. So that is the engine jacked up on one side, and what I've got to do now is see what the clearances are like. And now, you hear that? That is the cross member hitting on the throttle body, and that's with it jacked up on only one side. We'll see if I do the same on the other side, it'll make the situation worse. But it's interesting because of course I can take these out, what have you. Maybe I shall cut this thing out, or maybe not. We shall have to see. So off camera I did the same thing on the other side of the engine. Incidentally, I had forgotten this, but there was already, I can't see it, where is it? Can't find it. Anyway, there was already a metal shim very similar to the wooden ones I was showing a minute ago. There's already one in there. So the engine has been raised up on one side by around 1 centimetre, and on the other side by about 2 centimetres. So let's see what that's done to the ground clearance then, shall we? So the ground clearance has actually increased. It's still not massive. I'm going to struggle to get anything in there to measure with. It's distinctly higher than it was before. And the fact that the exhaust kind of droops down a bit is largely to do with the angle, I'm pointing with the light here, the angle of this part of the manifold. So if I increase the angle, it will tend to make it go up. So the height of the exhaust over here isn't to do with the height of the engine, it's to do with the exact design of the exhaust manifold. So I can change that when I take the engine out next. I can increase that angle slightly, and everything will hoist up quite nicely, I think. So that doesn't look stupidly low any longer. It's still low, but not stupidly low. There is, if you can see that, can you see that? I don't know whether you can see that. There we are, that's my engine mounting with the 2 spacers, and the other side looks the same. So obviously that could be a temporary thing, I could remake those in metal or what have you. But the interesting little extra element of the speaker question, because they can be slid in with a slot they have, I hope you remember, so you could actually slot them in from the side, versus the one that's just basically a taller engine mounting, and the whole engine mounting has to come in from above. So this might be easier to use than these Ford style ones, which come to the same thickness in total, but these could be slightly more difficult to use. So what has that done to the top end of the engine clearance? Now, I already know that this is going to be a problem. There's clearance in here next to the brake servo. There's a clearance to the steering shaft. That's all good, and I've felt down the back of the engine before. There's still clearance down there. So I think if my only problem, as it looks, my only problem is this thing. Let's have a quick demo of that. Yeah, it's quite in the way. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off. And I think as long as the hump, there is a hump in the inside of the bonnet here, as long as that coincides sufficiently with the with this, and this to some extent I guess also that, although that's actually adjustable, I could swivel downwards. That's true. If necessary, I could rotate this and make that go down. So I think, yeah, rather than fiddle around with not having enough ground clearance, I think I'll put up with a possibly slightly reduced amount of bonnet stiffness. So I'm going to cut this brace here, and I shall be still left with these ones, and well, I'll take it from there. So, time for the cutting disc. Okay, so let's see if I can cut this at a neat angle. That's going to go in my face, isn't it? Perhaps if I'll move the bonnet stand away. Okay, let's do it this way then. Alright, so this is what I've cut out, which is quite thin actually, not really matters. Let's see, has it made a lot of difference to the stiffness of the bonnet? Well, basically no. And look at that. Well, that is something's happened here. What's going on here? Maybe that's just bonnet adjustment. Yeah, okay. So I shall just check how much clearance there is by putting something in there. Right. So can it clear that? So this was the tight spot right in there. So there we go. And it's now completely clear. Can't tell exactly how clear it is, but it's clear. So there is a bit of adjustment needed down here. But yeah, it's a pity I've got this join in the insulation, which was only there because of the brace thing. Oh well. Yeah, so that's it then. The engine is now mounted about that much higher up than it was. By the way, this is the spacer which I discovered, if that's the word, on the right hand engine mounting, which was already there. This is slightly thinner than that board stuff that I was using, but I've added the board stuff as well, so the overall height adjustment on this side is probably, I don't know, similar to this thickness probably, whereas on the other side it is more. So this is how the engine bay appears now, and of course at a glance it looks exactly the same as it did before, although I have now managed to tidy up the piece of heat insulation that was missing in there, so that's a bit tidier. I can move on and finesse the exhaust some more, and that's the next thing. And eventually, after a considerable amount of effort, what did I achieve during my considerable time? Let's give you a look. So I've jacked the car up specially. So here we have it. So we have an X pipe with the lambda sensor, wideband sensor in it just there. And we have a couple of cross pipes, whatever you call those, going to the downpipes. Now this is actually the section where, if I can point with my foot, if I could increase the angle of this bend here, I could probably hoist up this section by ½ an inch. But considering I'm going to have the engine out shortly, I'll leave it till then, because taking the manifolds off is quite hard work. So yeah, so you can see where I've, if you like, cut and shut the pipes. So I've just cut the pipe in half and re-welded it. And yes, I have used mild steel welding wire on a stainless pipe. And no, that's probably not quite the way you should do it, but I have regarded this as a kind of prototype, and if it works really well, one day I might get it made by a professional, and I'll no doubt pay thousands for that. But we're not at that stage. And so here we have more of the same. There's a heck of a lot of this going on, to be honest. This pipe's been cut 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then we have more and more. So there's a lot of this type of stuff. As I said way back, I think I used 2 Mondeo diesel systems, but as well as that, a number of other bits and pieces. It's a job to work out where all the bits have gone, to be honest. But anyway, they're here somewhere, because there's not that much ended up in the scrap bin. And one of the things that's changed recently, I hope you can see just over there, if you can come into focus. You're going to come into focus? Can't even tell if you want. Yeah, into focus. So we now have a flexible pipe which wasn't there before, and another one, if I can focus back again, and another one just here, so that gives me flexibility. And the silencers are right tucked up inside the rear valance, which with the tailpipes coming out. So yeah, lots of joins, lots of small alterations to angles and things each time, by cutting, clocking, angling and so on. As I said, if this was to be remade, then obviously you would do it without all of that. You just make it right to start with. But this is a prototyping stage where I didn't want to spend thousands. This join here, I need that, otherwise I can't fit the thing under the body of the car due to the fact that the tailpipes come out through the rear valance. So that's the reason for that join. Yeah, my tailpipes are in fact quite pleasing. In summary, I would say, because this was a lot of extra work over and above the Mark 2, 3, whatever versions I had before, was primarily to increase ground clearance, especially at the back. As I said, I know how to raise it at the front, but the back was a heck of a lot more work than I thought. So all those nuancy little twists and cuts and angles, and that's what took the time, several days of fiddling, and of course multiplied by the fact I've got 2 exhausts, so I had to do the same thing each side. So yeah, a V6 or V anything I suppose exhaust is very likely to be close to double the price of an inline engine, I would say. So, oh, there's my lights getting squashed. So that is how it is, nicely tucked up, and well, we'll see how it is on the road. And of course, that's likely to be after I've taken the engine out to fix the blinking reverse gear. Oh well. If you got as far as this, thanks very much for watching, and in case you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. That would be really encouraging for me. So catch you on the next one.